moment. And as Ellen said earlier, sometimes it can help to put both of your feet on the floor to start to feel grounded in this moment. Thank you all for being here. We will now call to order our 2022 annual meeting. Thank you all for joining. As has been said, I'm Holly Hancock. I'm the moderator this year, and every voice does have a vote in this congregation. So I'm so grateful that you have stayed on this call for our annual meeting. Thank you so much. And we are now called to order for our annual meeting. Ellen, would you like to start us out with a prayer?
I would. And in honor of our yoga teacher and moderator, I am going to start us out with a breath prayer. Many of you know, I hope all of you know, but many of you know that our mission statement is to nurture love of God and love of neighbor in the world. And so I'd like to both keep those words in our heart and minds as we go forward into this meeting. And with credit to Chris Davis, who is the first one who put these words to a breath prayer, I would like to invite you to join me in breathing in and breathing out to these words, remembering that the out breath is the breath that actually signals to your body that it can relax. So when you breathe out, when you exhale longer than you inhale, it lets your body know it's in a safe, calm space. So we begin by breathing in the love of God, fully receiving that love in our bodies, and breathing out that love for the world. Long, slow breath. Breathing in God's love for us. Receiving it in every fiber of our being. And breathing out that love to share with our neighbor in the world. Breathing in the love of God. Receiving it. Breathing out that love to share with the world. Remembering that the world includes both our human and our non-human fellow beings. Amen.
Amen. That was beautiful. Thank you. I am a yoga teacher, and what Ellen was talking about there with exhaling longer than you inhale takes you into the parasympathetic nervous system response, which can help you anytime that you're feeling stressed. We often will call this getting out of a fight or flight response. And you might have heard an addendum to fight or flight, which is fight, flight, or freeze. And now a lot of trauma-informed spaces say fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So the fawn can be a stress response where we want to say, oh no, it's okay, everything is okay. And that's just as much of a stress response as fight, flight, or freeze. And I'm really grateful to be part of a congregation in which, even if sometimes we disagree on things, I never feel the need to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn over any of you. So I'm very grateful to be part of a group where we can tell one another the truth and also be loving towards one another. As Ellen mentioned, our mission statement is to nurture love of God and love of neighbor in the world. And this has really been my North Star as a moderator in a time where so many organizations have really struggled with COVID protocols and what it means to be online. I am so grateful to be part of a church where we want to care for one another and care for our world and truly continue to nurture one another in safe, life-affirming ways. So thank you to all of you for being a part of that. I'm really grateful to be here with all of you today. And if at any point in this meeting you feel the need to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, I just encourage you to take a slow exhale and a slow inhale, lather, rinse, repeat, and then we can continue on our merry way. I'll also just take a moment to say thank you to each of you. Thank you to Ellen. Thank you to Meg, our administrator. Thank you to everyone who has chaired a committee, volunteered on a committee. Again, we're just so grateful. I'm so grateful for all that you do for our church. It is not, no singular, no one person can do it all. And I'm really grateful to come out of this role as moderator feeling so held and loved. And I really have felt all of your love and care this year. So thank you very much for that. I think we will begin with our first action item for the congregation, which is an approval of a 2-minute speaker limit. We have a goal to finish the meeting by 1:30, and Margaret, our clerk, has said that she can only stay till 1:40, which is great. So, so let's continue to stick to that. We'd like to encourage people to keep their concern short, sweet, and to the point. We propose a 2-minute speaker limit for those raising discussion on voting items. So to be clear, this is not for folks that will be sharing action items. They can speak for more than 2 minutes. But if you as a congregant have a concern or a question, we ask that you keep that concern, question, or comment to 2 minutes. You can also use the chat if that helps. If you have a concern with the treasurer report, for example, we ask that you do your best to be concise and keep your speaking to 2 minutes, ensuring anyone interested gets a time to share and ensuring we respect one another's time and energy. I will be our spiritual timekeeper during the annual meeting. If you go over 2 minutes in your share, I will politely name the 2-minute limit and ask that you wrap up your thoughts. This time limit is not meant to be restrictive or mean in spirit. I won't be cutting you off exactly at 2 minutes, just encouraging you to be mindful with the reminder that when we speak, that means that someone else is not able to speak. May I have a motion to approve a 2-minute speaker limit? I see Sam.
So move.
Perfect, Alan, thank you. Do I have a second? Sam? Perfect. Thank you. Is there any discussion? Which would be ironic, but there can be. All in favor? Beautiful. All opposed? Any an abstention? Great. Okay, so we have 42 folks present. I see all in favor, no opposed, no abstention. Wonderful.
Just a note, Holly, on Zoom, the 42 counts the number of windows. It does not count the number of people.
Okay, right. Thank you. Which has been an interesting part of Zoom for the last year. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Holly, I can go ahead and figure out the number of people for you. So just you can continue.
Okay, perfect. All right. Next, we will move on to the approval of the 2021 annual minutes, which all of you have received our agenda for the year. Alan, I see you raising your hand.
Yes. I'm going to post a quick comment in the chat box. For those who can't access the chat box, I'm posting the URLs for the 2020 annual meeting minutes, as well as the 2020 annual report. I'm sure it's just a glitch that they haven't been posted yet on the website, but I was able to monkey with the URL and I derived the address, and they're now in the chat box so everybody can see those documents. I'm going to post 4 short questions in the chat box as well. And for the benefit of those unable to access the chat box, I'm also going to read those questions aloud. A first question.
Hey, babe, I'm gonna have to have you come off the internet.
Hey, Margaret, we can hear you.
First question. Despite our agreement last year at the annual meeting to amend the 2020 annual minutes, there's still no record of our congregational vote on the Second Century Capital Campaign's ADA ramp options. Yes or no, could the 2020 annual meeting minutes finally be amended as we agreed last January to include a sentence about our vote on those options? So that's my first question. I'm going to wait for the second one until I get a yes or no. Does everyone recall us agreeing to do that at the last annual meeting? I do.
Alan, just a note for the future that it would be really helpful to have these questions ahead of time so that we can, seek any answers in a timely fashion to have them ready for the annual meeting.
Okie dokie, I will do it. But I think it's a relatively simple question. If you remember our discussion last year, I noticed that the 2020 annual meeting minutes did not include any mention of our congregational vote on the 4 different ramp options. And at that time, I asked if it could be included in the minutes, and it was agreed that it would be included in the minutes. But now I see the minutes are the same. Maybe they've been amended and they just haven't been posted.
Am I seeing you raise your hand?
Yeah, point of order, please. The motion on the floor is to discuss the approval of the 2021 minutes. Discussion of the 2020 minutes is not in order at the moment. We can discuss that at a later time. I recommend we stay with the motion on the floor.
Like I said, they're simple yes, no questions. I guess if you can't give a simple yes, we'll have to take it up later.
Yeah, Alan, what I'm thinking, and thank you for bringing this up. I think because I do not have an answer to your question, because I was not aware of the question, but I am hearing what you're saying, and I do recall what you're talking about. If we at the end of the meeting, when we have other business, that might be an appropriate time to discuss this. And because I'm hosting the meeting, I'm not sure that I'll be able to think through it by then, but perhaps one of us can. And we will.
That's fine. I'm not going to forget these questions. And they're very simple yes, no questions.
Yeah.
The fourth one might provoke some discussion because it is new business, but I don't want to bring up the new business till we take care of the old business.
Great.
It
Okay.
does concern the minutes and what we agreed to do.
Okay.
I agree with Dit and Holly that there has not been enough notice and preparation to go forward and cementing some position in the minutes regarding what was then a contentious issue. And I remember that there was discussion, but I don't remember the details. And I think that without some adequate notice and everything, we can't really deal with this issue responsibly.
My question is not on the vote. I missed that meeting because I was sick. My question is on last year's annual meeting, we agreed to include a sentence in the minutes that a vote was taken. That's all I'm saying. We agreed, if you were at the annual meeting last year, we agreed that that would be added to the minutes, to the 2020 minutes.
We don't know what the sentence would be. And so I think it needs.
Sentence would be, the congregation took a vote on the 4 options and the Lowell Street ramp was preferred by most members. That would be a sentence. That would be the sentence that I would like to see in there.
Don Blanchon, I see you raising your hand.
Yeah. Holly, for the spirit that we got a heck of a long agenda, I would concur with DIT and acting on this. And then Alan, I think I can address some of the questions around the ramp and the trustees update, and whether we want to add language during that section of these minutes to have that, and so that we see that right away in this discussion, so that you get your point captured.
Thank you,
There's a
Don. I don't
practical-
really want to, thank you. I don't want to really see them in this minutes. I want us to do what we said we would do, and that is add a sentence to the 2020 minutes about the vote taking place.
Okay. So Alan, my promise to you is that we can discuss this and make sure that I want to make sure that you feel heard. And we can do that either at the end of this meeting or in an email with Meg and anyone else that is important. But I do very much hear you, and I appreciate you bringing that up.
Thank you.
Yep. So returning to the approval of the 2021 annual meeting minutes, which are found in the annual report. Do I have a motion to approve the 2021 minutes, or are there any amendments that folks feel the need to bring up? Would anyone like to raise their hand to approve the 2021 minutes? Callie, perfect. Thank you. Oh, do I have a second? Great. Alan, thank you. Is there any discussion of the 2021 minutes? All in favor? Beautiful. All opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, and I think I see Ellen said there's 45 people present, and it looks like all are in favor. No opposed, no abstentions. Great, the motion carries. Our 2021 minutes are approved. Thank you. Okay, next I'm going to pass the mic to Elizabeth Schiemann to talk about our new leadership structure, or leadership restructure. For those that don't know, Elizabeth has been so helpful as we shift and remodel a little bit of our leadership structure, and which we've done throughout this year. We piloted it. And if you have any questions or are forgetting that we did that, Elizabeth will now kind of go over what we've done. So Elizabeth, thank you again for all of the ways that you show up for our church, including this. Take it away.
Sure, thanks. Before I get started, I just want to take a minute. I know we did this a little bit at the beginning and during the service. I think, Ellen, your Ubuntu was very well timed for what I'm getting ready to talk about, but just to thank you all, everyone who's currently serving or who has previously served in paid or volunteer positions at our church. You share your time and gifts so generously. I've learned a ton about our church in this process and how we serve our own members and the wider community. The work and ministry we offer to each other, our community, and the world is not the work of any one person, and it's not the charge of clergy or lay people alone. It's relationship building, and our joint ministry depends on this type of community. So just kudos to all of you who make it possible and step up every day, not just on Sundays, to make the work go. I'm going to do a quick recap of how we got here, and then have a minute if anybody has questions. You'll remember that in fall and winter of 2020, we had a task force, which was Bruce Grimes, Dan Sack, myself, Pastor Ellen, Holly, and Serena. And we put together the idea for the pilot. We shared ideas iteratively with the cabinet at that time. In December and January of 2021, there was a congregational update during a coffee hour on January 17th. And then we had a discussion at the congregational meeting last year on the 31st. The proposal included an expanded leadership team, a clear separation of power between the cabinet, at that time now council, and the board of trustees, a new communications and technology committee, and a change in the organization and naming of deacons and worship support. And I am going to quickly, if you are a visual person like me, and that verbal is not helpful to you, I'm going to drop in the letter that Meg helped us send out to the congregation in the chat. It's the second link, and it's UCC pilot proposal handout. So if you need to visually look at that, it will potentially be helpful. And generally, this
Elizabeth,
was a
I
restate.
also made you co-host if you want to share anything on the screen.
Thanks. I may do that in a minute. At that point, the idea was a general restating and refreshing so that our written documentation would more accurately represent what the church was doing. So aligning a leadership model with our current congregational practice, covering all the operations work we do, and sharing the burden of leadership. At that point, so basically this time last year, you as a congregation voted to move forward with a pilot project until the next annual meeting today. And the plan would be to see how that worked, see if we need to make any changes, and then work towards amending the bylaws if you all approved it. I can also share with you what we've done throughout this year to make sure this work moved forward. And I'm going to drop one more link in. If you want to see the notes we've collected, there's a spreadsheet link in there. And throughout the year, I've tracked by item comments and feedback we've received at different opportunities, including the council meetings, the mid-year meeting, via personal emails to Holly and Ellen and I, as well as a survey that we sent out last month. I think it was either December or January, recently. You all have been wonderful partners in this work, so thank you for that. Really appreciated the feedback, the questions, the conversations really helped us clean up some of the language that was still a little bit confusing. And I think we've gotten to a place where we have a pretty good idea of what's working and not working. I also want to acknowledge that while the name changes and leadership team expansion seem to be in place and happening, we fully believe that there are some of the changes, particularly with the worship planning and support deacon update, that are going to be less apparent how the impact is felt until we're back in person. And so we all are very clear that that's real and that we want to have that flexibility moving forward to address any of those sticky points. And I will fully shout out Serena and many others who have really helped, Dan, the folks that are now our communications and technology. I think a lot of that work is ongoing, and I'm super appreciative to everyone who's flexing with that as we go and being very responsive to the change as it kind of happens on the fly sometimes. So the what's next is an opportunity for you all to ask any more questions. If you want to see anything, let me know. I can pull up documents. But today, in the spirit of the vote last year, what we are hoping to do is have a vote to accept the changes we have piloted. And I believe, and I've checked in with Bruce and Holly, what we would expect is that if the congregation accepts these changes, the next steps would be to update the congregation's bylaws to reflect what we had written in the pilot proposal with the amendments from the tracker. And this is work I am willing to continue to shepherd unless there is someone who's really excited and loves writing bylaws. If that's you, A, welcome aboard, and B, if you want to lead it, I'm more than willing to step back. So I will put that out there, but that's where I believe we are. Happy to have questions, conversation, discussion. And again, I could not have done this by myself, and the feedback has been phenomenal. So thank you for your help. I don't see any digital or real hands. So Ellen, are you getting any chats either? I want to cover all the media. We're all different kinds of users. Okay.
Oh, nothing on email either.
Cool. Well, at that point, Holly, what I would observe and hear is that we are in a pretty good place. So I think we thought a motion might be best coming from you.
Yep. Thank you. And again, thank you so much, Elizabeth. And I will say real quick, one question or comment that we did get in a survey was, why are we changing it from cabinet to council? And for those that don't know, most UCC churches call their leadership structure council, not cabinet. We are not fully sure why ours calls it cabinet, except that maybe because we're in Washington, DC, and at some point that felt DC-like, but that is why we are changing the name from cabinet to council. Alan, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, I have a quick question about the last part of the 3-page proposal where under music committee, it says Dorothy Mora as staff music director and member of the congregation will be a voting member of the music committee. Do we want to take her name out and just say the music director?
Alan, no, I think that was a special occurrence because Dorothy is a member of our congregation, and only members and longtime friends of the congregation serve on committees. So a staff person in general, it would not be the order for them to serve on a committee. They would be paired with a committee, of course.
So she's still going to be on the music committee?
That is up to Dorothy as a member. My understanding, and I think Dorothy is actually on this call, my understanding was that Dorothy needed to step back from music responsibilities given everything else in her life right now. But any member of the congregation is welcome to volunteer to serve on a committee.
I just wanted to make it clear, I have been a member of the congregation since 1992.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. In other words, Dorothy was a member of the music committee because she was a member of the congregation and the music director. If we hire a new music director, presumably that person will not be a member of the congregation, so they would not serve on the music committee. Dorothy, as a member now, can serve on the music committee or not serve on the music committee. And it may have been my error that, Dorothy, you wanted to pull back from all the music responsibilities. If you want to be a member of the music committee, your name will immediately go back on. That's up to you.
And I will add that the document that you're looking at is the document we wrote in December 2020 and put up in 2021. So I would, I think that's one of the pieces that's interesting, is what we're voting on would be reflective of what we've learned and has changed. And it's my error that I haven't created an updated version for you that's like to the exact wording. And that's also where I see the bylaws work happening, is that the in writing piece of this will be coming before you all as a separate piece of approval. And what I did want to share is, and I'm sorry I didn't say this earlier, our current bylaws read that the bylaws may be amended by a majority vote of active church members at an annual meeting or at a meeting called for that purpose at which a quorum is present. The proposed amendment or amendments shall be included in the call for the meeting and circulated at least 2 weeks prior to the meeting date. So what I would, and I saw Dan's point in the chat, thank you, Dan. If we are putting forward a motion today for the work to happen, to adopt the pilot as the formal leadership structure of the church, then that work would be coming to you all as a bylaws change so that you could see it in writing and know exactly how that operational change would happen. Thank you for the question. It's a good one. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you again, Elizabeth. Are there any other questions about our leadership remodel? Okay, beautiful. Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the leadership remodel and to update the bylaws accordingly? I see Bruce. Oh, perfect. Do I have a second?
I'll second is Lee.
Thank you, Lee. Is there any discussion?
I'm sorry, was that Bruce and Lee?
Yes.
Got it. Yep.
Bruce Lee, sorry.
There you go.
Is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Perfect. All opposed? Any abstentions? Perfect. I see 1 abstention and 45 in favor. Okay, the motion carries. We approve to update the leadership model and update the bylaws accordingly. Thank you all.
One additional question, if anybody really wants to help with the bylaws, or you happen to be a lawyer, and you're interested in being kind of the look at it once they're drafted, please email me or reach out to the office and they'll put you in touch. Thanks.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Great. Okay. So next on our agenda is the slate of candidates for 2022 elected positions. This is also in the annual report. I will go over them quickly. Our moderator will be Bruce Grimes. Thank you, Bruce. Our vice moderator will be Heidi Moon. Thank you, Heidi. I will be the past moderator, Voice Without Vote, Holly Hancock. Clerk is John C. John, thank you so much for taking on this role. And Margaret, thank you for being our clerk, especially this year when you were in Ohio. It means so much and we will miss you greatly. Our treasurer will be Don Marshall. Financial Secretary, Robert Glass. Music, Sarah Spey. Thank you so much for stepping up to this. Sarah and Dorothy, thank you so much for your service. We are so lucky to have had you as our music director. Dan Sack will continue in his role as the worship chair. Fellowship will be Trish McKenzie. Congregation care, Nancy Palu. Lee, thank you so much for your time on the Congregation Care Committee as the chair. And Nancy, we are excited to have you here. Dawn Straits and April Quinlan will be chairing Children and Youth. Thank you both so much for doing that. And we thank Maribel for her service in the past. Adult programs will continue to be Emily Parker. Mission and Social Action, Ashley Holst. Building and Grounds will again be co-chaired by Catherine Stevens and Serena Wilshire. Communications and Technology will be Mark Turner. And for those that are not aware, Mark Turner has done so much behind the scenes work this year to bring us hybrid. Thank you, Mark. It's truly a labor of love. And our trustee chair, A Voice Without Vote, will be Dawn Blanchon. On the board of trustees, Dawn will continue to be our chair. We also have Vanessa Andrews, John Buchanan, Mary Jane Glass, and there is one amendment to our slate of candidates, which is that Heidi, because she is now vice moderator, will be stepping away from the trustees position, the board of trustees position. Dawn, would you like to briefly share about that?
Yeah, thanks so much, Holly. Just so grateful for Heidi's service in the last couple of years and supporting the capital campaign work as well as the work on the racial justice audit this year. Heidi, thank you. We have a friendly amendment to replace Heidi with Edmund Frost. And Edmund, many of you know, we're excited about having Edmund join. We've got a bunch of work for the trustees that you'll hear about in a little bit, but I would put forward an amendment to replace Heidi Moon's name with Edmund Frost.
One clarification, what role is that? So replacing Heidi with Edmund in what role?
A trustee role, Margaret.
Okay. Got it. Yep.
Donna, question.
Moved.
To be clear, this would be happening in May, not immediately, correct?
We would want it to happen immediately, given that Heidi is switching over to vice moderator immediately.
All right.
So just for the congregation's knowledge, it seemed quirky for us to have an annual meeting, to have a slate of officers, but or a slate of nominees, knowing that Heidi would step away immediately into vice moderator and her term ends, and then have a singular vote on potentially a singular person in late April. It didn't make a lot of sense to us when we talked through it with the leadership. So here we are.
Plus, I'd rather not do two things at once for 4 months.
That's great. Thank you, Heidi, and thank you, Edmund, and thank you, Dawn. Are there any other questions? Great. And Ellen put in the chat, huge thanks to Catherine and Serena for their almost daily work on our beloved building. Yes, thank you, Buildings and Grounds. And truly thank you to everyone who chairs a committee or who volunteers on a committee, there is, even as moderator, where I kind of get to see what everyone is doing. There's just, I know that all of you go above and beyond and do so much that, you know, we're not always aware is happening. So thank you to everyone who has chaired a committee this past year and who will be chairing or has agreed to chair this coming year, as well as our board of trustees. I am so grateful for all of the work that you do in a way that words really can't do justice for. So thank you to each of you. Okay. So do I have a motion to approve the slate of officers for 2022?
I so move.
Is that Lee? Perfect, Lee, thank you.
Lee
And Ed.
and Ed. So maybe you've got a second? Oh,
Ed,
no,
are you-
that's a conflict of interest.
Couple goals, that's what we
Whatever.
say in my
However
generation.
it works.
Holly, I just have one question. Have we nominated Edmund here? To the
Yeah,
trustees?
so
Yes.
yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that nomination had actually happened.
Thank you, Robert. So thank you. So let me rephrase that. Do I have a motion to approve the slate of candidates, including the one amendment of Edmund being on the board of trustees?
Yeah, so move.
Okay.
Perfect. A second. Great. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Love it. All opposed? Anyone in abstention? Perfect. I see one abstention and 45 in favor.
Okay, and that was Robert Glass who seconded.
Sure. Yes. Thank you. All right. We approved the slate of lay leaders. Thank you for each of you for donating your time and wisdom to our church. I really cannot say thank you enough. So thank you again. Okay. Next, we'll get to the really fun stuff. Budgeting, treasurer's report, and approval of 2022 budget. Dawn Marshall, take it away.
Thanks. Let me see if I can make my screen share work. Hold on a second. Okay. All right. We'll start with the 2021 overview. We did pretty well on income, all things considered. Our pledge income came on almost exactly on target, which is great. We did very well with general contributions. People were very generous. I think in part because of the online services, people giving a little extra, which was terrific. And then miscellaneous income, we benefited significantly from the CARES Act payroll tax credit. So all told, we finished just short of our income goal, but pretty close. On the expense side, things were pretty much as we expected and a little bit less. We finished short of on expenses by almost 15, almost 20,000. So that was very good, and that gave us a net position of 9818, so a nice surplus, and that's in addition to the 12,000 that we had put aside as a COVID contingency. So really, the surplus comes to a little over 20,000 for 2021, so the at our last council meeting, we voted to carry over any amount of surplus needed to balance the 2022 budget, and to then transfer the rest into our contingency fund, which has been drawn down a bit in recent years. So that is the, well, let me, before I close out 2021, let's look at the assets. This is just a rundown of our assets at the end of last year, which are all in good shape. One thing I would note, this is a revised version from what was sent around, because there was a mistake in the version that was sent around, and the Celestine Fund said that there was a zero balance. That is not the case. In fact, we took in 15,600 and 7,500 went out. We have a balance of 8,400 in the Celestine Fund. Any questions on the 2021 closeout? All right, very good. Alan.
Just to clarify, is the Celestine Fund about the man named Celestine? Is that who we're talking about? Thanks.
Yes.
Alan, I can clarify. There's a group of people in the congregation who are contributing so that he can have a room to live in 2022.
Any other questions? Take a quick look at the capital campaign numbers also from 2021. 568,000 in, and that's a campaign total, not a 2021 total, but it is as of the end of 2021. And 669,000 out. I believe there is still one more expense due in from the first floor bathroom, and then that project will be closed out. There's about $100,000 that have been transferred from our contingency fund to the capital campaign to support the acceleration of that work that we all agreed to. All right. We will now move on to 2022 and discuss our budget looking forward. So we pretty much met our pledge goal, which is terrific, of about 282,000. Great work by the team, Bruce and everyone else for getting that done. It was indeed a last minute effort to get in all the pledges, but our congregation came through and we did fairly well there. So that's very good. We've for 2022, we've adjusted general contributions down a bit. Just it's somewhat of a guess on because the increase in sort of one-off online giving is something fairly new, and so we're still trying to figure out exactly what rate to expect that to come in at. But we expect it'll slow down somewhat, but we shall see. Miscellaneous income, because of the payroll tax credit going away, is back down to a small level. As we discussed in the last council meeting, we have come to a new agreement with Kinderhouse. That was in the works when we discussed the last council meeting. Don and I communicated earlier this week. It is now, I think, final or close to final, and we're expecting will include a 3% rent increase beginning with February's rent. So that knocks up our rent to $61,585 for 2022. And I don't know if Don's going to talk about this later, but there will be subsequent year increases also above and beyond the 3%. So that's terrific. going for our finances going forward. Another aspect of it is that there's a utility share. I believe it's a 50% utility share, excluding August. And that also begins in February, and we're estimating that at about $200 a month. That will be vary depending on our utility usage overall, but that gives us another $2,000 to add in income for the year ahead. And then you'll see the carryover surplus of 9439, which is the amount needed to balance this budget per the council's agreement at the last meeting. Alan, did you have a question?
Yeah, just quickly, is Kinderhouse doing okay? Are they back up to their former operation?
Maybe someone else can.
Alan, if you don't mind, I'll cover Kinderhouse during the trustees update. We'll get to that. Okay.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. So moving along, the notable budget items for 2022 are the senior minister salary, which is receiving a COLA adjustment of 6% this year. So that is factored in there. You'll also note under sabbatical minister, we have $2,000 budgeted. We put aside $5,000 into a designated fund last year. So the total budget for the sabbatical minister is $7,000 for the year ahead. The music is a bit of a guessing game as we'll be looking for a music director and still trying to figure out some of those positions and how much they'll be paid and when they'll start paying. But we've estimated a few figures in there and feel comfortable with where the budget stands. You'll see an increase in the soloist and substitute. Latia is taking on a bigger role as we await the hiring of a music director. Actually, I'm sorry.
Don, can I just say one thing about that? So clearly we won't be hiring a music director for $5,500 a year. That is, because we will not be looking immediately for a music director. The music committee would like to, and I agree, would like to take some time to, just have an interim situation, take a pause. I mean, obviously, Dorothy was our music director for many, many, many years, and it's typically a really good thing just to kind of take a pause before then starting up a search process. So those numbers, are fine for this year, but they don't necessarily reflect what things will look like going forward.
Thanks. And then also an increase in children and youth staff salary, sort of reflecting what we believe will need to be paid for that position. Let's see, also a 6% COLA increase for Meg, our administrator. And you'll see noted in the miscellaneous under administration, $750 for Community Purchasing Alliance. This is a group that we pay, I think it's $750 up front and then maybe $100 a year. And it allows us to join with other organizations to purchase various things, including energy, I believe, potentially at a lower cost. So it could give us some significant savings, and I think we all agree it was well worth the relatively small investment.
Can I say something about that too?
Please.
I was on a call with Meg and Catherine and the Community Purchasing Alliance people, and the additional benefit to this is that they do try to they find and they enter into agreements with different contractors, service providers, energy and utility providers, and that sort of thing, to get a lower rate for everybody who's part of the alliance. And they do look for Black-owned businesses, people of color that are looking to expand their customer base. So it's in line with our racial justice, desires.
Thanks, Serena. Under Alan. Question.
Sorry,
No
I
worries.
have two questions. One about utilities and one about the snow removal budgeted for this year.
Yeah.
I don't see us spending $2,000 on snow removal since the snows that we've had so far, there's only been one instance of shoveling done by volunteers. So maybe you could save some money there. And then the other question about utilities. The electricity, are we paying this money to Pepco or does it go to some green group? You know how they let you pay your utility bill? I don't understand all the ins and outs of it, but for instance, in my case, it's going to this renewable energy place rather than Pepco itself. Do you know if that's what we're doing?
Someone from Buildings and Ground know the answer to that?
I don't.
I don't know it.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I think we could find out from Meg or John Tishy.
Yeah, if we're not giving to the green group and we decide to do that, I would highly recommend being at a fixed rate rather than a rate that varies with the market, because I had the varying rate and then I suddenly discovered in November and December the rate shot up like 33%. So when I called them to complain, they gave me a rebate and put me on the fixed rate. And I got a big rebate. And they said, this settles your complaint, right? They were covering it.
Alan, John Tishy just put in the chat that we pay Pepco for electricity and that we're part of a co-op for natural gas. And I would add to that now that we're a member of the Community Purchasing Alliance, there may be some options for green energy. So we can certainly look into that.
Yeah, you want to get on the fixed rate, annual fixed rate, rather than a variable rate that goes up and down with the market.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. It's a good point. Speaking of things that go up and not down, we're paying substantially more for insurance than we have in previous years, and that's something that we need to do some more investigation because the increase is dramatic. On the snow removal, that was requested by Buildings and Grounds, that amount. If someone, they can speak to it, but I'll just say that we have a particular requirement to have the sidewalks cleared by a certain time when Kinderhaus is in session. So that does put a somewhat of a burden on us, and so I know that there was a desire to do it on a volunteer basis, but feeling that that's not really workable and that we need to have someone on contract. I think the 2000 is.
It's still an hour before they open in the morning.
Serena?
Yeah, I mean, this is getting a little complicated and maybe we ought to take this offline sometime, Alan, just because there's a lot of moving parts happening right now, but we plan to talk to Kinderhaus in the lease negotiations about transferring the responsibility for snow removal to them during the week, because it's just become such a problem for us as volunteers. If we do that, we have to allot a certain amount because they're just going to call a contractor. We can right now go over there and check things out. And Catherine and I have been spreading snow melt, and John C has gone over with Robert's snowblower, and we've handled it so far on a volunteer basis, but it's gotten to be pretty much of a headache. So we wanted to allot that much just in case we need to deal with it on a contractor basis. And we're not sure how that's going to fall out exactly, but we'll let you know.
Thanks.
Yeah, okay, so other than that, one other thing, the utilities, just to Alan's point, are, we had lower utility costs last year because of not being in-person service. And we budgeted for 2022 back to 2019, back to 2020 levels, I should say, pre-pandemic levels, I should say. But energy costs have gone up. And so it's hard to know where that's going to net out. I mean, because we're not doing in-person services during these cold months, we may be saving some money, but that's just something we'll keep our eye on. So that brings us to a budget that is, as I said, about $9,000 higher in expenses than in income, which we're offsetting with a surplus carryover. Overall, I think this is a good budget, and we're in strong financial shape. I do have some concerns just on a going forward basis that our expenses are increasing in a lot of different ways. I mean, you look at insurance, you look at the fact that we're going to be paying for a music director. As Ellen said, $5,500 is not going to be the amount. It's going to be higher than that. That might be offset with some of the other costs we have built into this year's budget. We're also going into a time of higher inflation, and we're going to be paying more for a lot of things. At the same time, we are growing the church's numbers, but it seems to me we may be sort of maxing out what we can expect in pledge donations. The increases can't be that much more year over year, as long as we stick with the same numbers. Hopefully we'll have more people coming in, and that can continue to increase and grow. But I just want to just raise that flag now, just as we got to think about expenses, because things are getting more expensive, and our income is, I think, somewhat stabilized on the pledge side, perhaps, but we are going to see some increases from Kinderhouse, which is good. But anyway, something to keep our eye on, and we'll keep watching and reporting back to folks. Any questions on the 2022 budget?
One clarifying question for the minutes. I did want to note that you've voiced that our current projections have us at about 9,000 over projected income. And you're saying that currently the plan would be to offset that with the contingency fund?
No. So, and sorry, I probably wasn't entirely clear about that. The 22 budget is a balanced budget because we're going to carry over $9,439 from the 2021 surplus.
Got it. Yeah.
And that was approved by the council at the last meeting. Any carryovers need to be approved by the council, and that was done. So, the budget is balanced with that carryover amount.
Yeah. Okay.
Don, could you just briefly talk about the $12,000 COVID contingency?
Yeah, that was an amount we just simply put aside it was an accounting move, just to say we've got $12,000 because we had our projected income was $12,000 more than our projected expenses for 2021.
So in other words, it was a notional thing. I mean,
it was totally notional, yeah.
Okay.
Just a way to account for that overage and say we can call on it when needed.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Other questions? Great. Well, do we vote on this now?
Yep, I can bring it home. Don, thank you so much for your work as treasurer, and to everyone else, John and Robert on our financial team. As Don often jokes, he is not a treasurer by trade, but you would not know it based on the act of love that you do every year for our church. So thank you.
Well, that's just because I am in public relations as a trade, so I can make it sound good even if I don't know what I'm talking about.
Could I just prominently add the names of Meg House and John Tishy to that list?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, and as always, I mean, they do more work than I do, I think, on a day-to-day basis. So much appreciation to Robert and Meg and John.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the treasurer's report and 2022 budget? And Don, if you want to exit screen share, perfect. Gracias. Great. I see Serena is giving a motion. Great. Do I have a second? Great. I see Nancy as a second. Thank you. Is there any discussion? Okay. All in favor? It's my favorite part. Everybody raise their hand. Okay. Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, great. So I see all in favor, and as Pastor Ellen pointed out, we now have 44 present in favor.
So 44 on this, because again, just to clarify, the numbers have been changing. So
yes.
So
yes.
44 on this and no abstentions.
That I saw, correct. Oh,
Okay.
I'm sorry, there is one abstention.
Got it.
So that will make it 43 in favor and 1 abstention.
Got it. And what's Nancy's last name?
Actually, I think we now have 42 on the screen. I'm sorry, the numbers just keep changing a little bit.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, my last name is Paulu. P as in Peter, A-U-L-U.
Oh, hey, Nancy. I can't exactly see as I'm taking notes. So
That's
I'm
okay.
sorry, what do we want reflected as congregants in favor?
So it's
42?
41 in favor, 1 abstention, I believe is correct.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. I appreciate
And Sam,
that.
you probably want to lower your hand just to make sure you can be adequately counted next time.
Okay. All right, so the motion carries. We approve the treasurer's report and 2022 budget proposal. Beautiful. Thank you. All right. Next, we will move to the treasurer's report with, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong thing. Next, that would be crazy. Deja vu. Next, we will get a Board of Trustees update with Don Blanchon. Don.
Thanks so much, Holly. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll start with some thank yous. First to Vanessa Andrew, Mary Jane Glass, Heidi Strong-Moon, and John Buchanan. A heavy lift this year in year 3 of the campaign, plus work in negotiating a new facility use agreement with Kinderhouse. And I'll come back to where we are with Kinderhouse in a minute. And then it's obviously some work around the racial justice audit. The trustees pretty active this year, as you can see in the report. And they were so wonderfully supported by Meg, by Ellen, by Holly. And obviously we get to spend a lot of quality time with 2 of my most favorite people in the congregation, Catherine Stevens and Serena Wilshire in Buildings and Grounds. So a pretty robust body of work you can see in the written document. I'm just going to cover 2 areas for you. With respect to the capital campaign, Don did a great job in showing you the numbers. Just to give you a flavor for this, we're about 85% of the way to the $1 million goal, with a little over about 20 plus months left to go, 23, 24 months left to go in the campaign. So we're getting there. We've got 2/3 of the money in that was expected in the campaign, which is great, which has allowed us to do more work. So that's been fantastic. And we've taken advantage, obviously, with the building closure to get some things done in advance. So that's been a wonderful element. And then the one thing that's going to kind of pop up in the next 6 to 12 months with respect to the campaign is first a kind of renewed push on fundraising. There are 47 pledges in for the capital campaign versus 73 pledges in for stewardship. And so some of that's a function of there are new members of the church to which the campaign and the trustees haven't had a formal reach out and a personal touch with. So we have some there. And we also have had some changes in circumstances with current congregation members. And so we're going to make a pretty good push in the first half of this year. So for the 23 plus 24 of you who haven't given yet, expect some TLC from yours truly and the rest of the trustees coming to you at a time and place to be determined. Since I think all of us on the trustees are boosted, we can actually do in-person stuff. And so we would welcome that if any of the individuals want to meet in person. So that's coming. The second element that'll come down the pike is really some review of the programming elements that are yet to be completed. Obviously, there's a bunch of work that the mission committee is working on for the mission or the tithe of the campaign. There's some additional elements on environmental sustainability. There's some more work to be done, I think, around the tech area. And then obviously the last issue will be the exterior accessibility question in the ramp. I suspect that issue comes up in the second half of the year, in large part because we've got to figure out, do we achieve the $1 million goal or not? And there's a few things that are in those elements that were in the last year or the last 2 years of the campaign, and we're 3+ years in. We've done a great job to date, and as expected, we've got to revisit the last couple of years and whether or not we have enough money to do all of this. And so it's going really well, notwithstanding COVID. And again, thank you to all of you who have pledged. And for those who haven't yet, thank you for what you are about to do. I'd like to close this session of this part of the trustees update. Holly, can you let me share? I've got one photo I want to show so that people actually see how their money is being used vis-a-vis the campaign. And so can you share, or whoever has share screen? Awesome, thank you. Can everybody see that? Can everybody see that photo? You couldn't see it?
No.
Oh.
Tragic. Hold on one second. Can you see that now?
Yeah.
Victory. Okay. So I have a host of photos which I'm going to send out with some updates when we do the pledging, because Catherine and Serena with the contractors have done an amazing job. But to show you a little bit about how the pledges that you've committed and the dollars you've sent in has gone to work. This is a great photo of the light and space of the new handicap accessible bathroom, which is in between, in effect, where you walk into the church building closest to Lowell Street, and then what is now a hallway between that entryway and the church office. And so there's a great hallway there now that you'll see when you are back in person soon. There's 2 restrooms there. There's some great storage space. There's really well lit area. And instead of showing you 6 photos, I just wanted to show you one because of time, but 2, also I just wanted to see that this was really well done. Hats off to Catherine and Serena for their planning with the contractor. It's a beautiful space. It's accessible. There's a changing space for babies, and it's done in a way that it still provided a lot of natural light and space. And so we're really grateful for the group that worked on this, but also we wanted to show you how the campaign is still hard at work, putting your money to good use for the goals that we set up. So
Don, I don't know whether it was intentional, but that looks like a great place for meditation.
Multi-use, Robert, multi-use.
Just bring a good magazine with you.
Oh my word. Anyway, so thank you again to the group that's helped us get that portion done. And so next I'm going to switch gear over to Kinderhouse. And so Don mentioned the financial impact of a new facility use agreement. This past week, we executed a 1-year agreement with a 2-year renewal period. The 1-year agreement has a base rent increase from 2021 of 3%. It has the utility cost sharing for every month except August when Kinderhouse is closed. That number, I know Don budgeted at 2. That was a conservative number after looking at some of the use information from John Tishy. Hopefully that number is actually, from an income perspective, a little bit better for us and helps us with the 22 realities. And then we did this agreement instead of doing a 3 or longer year agreement with Kinderhouse, because it's a transition year with them coming out of COVID, really trying to understand what their operations will look like. So I think, Alan, you asked a question a little bit about how they're doing. Last time we've checked in with them, they were a little over 40% of their base enrollment for kids that they can take care of. They have adjusted their staffing model for the lower enrollment. So they They were literally went all the way down where they almost physically closed. Their staff wasn't working at all for long periods of time, then ramped back up again in the fall, and then have attenuated down to get the staffing and the enrollment to the place where they can make their financial, their needs met. They expect enrollment to continue to increase. They've done some work on their website. They've done some other elements. I think candidly, they've got another 3 to 6 months minimum of, okay, how does enrollment go? Which is part and parcel why we didn't enter into a multi-year agreement. We need to see how they're doing. Because clearly with them as a key member of our community, but also its impact on the church's operations financially, we didn't want to put them in a position where we had either too big of a facility use increase, or quite frankly, too long of a term that would make it difficult for them to stay in the space. And so I think we landed in a good place, and I want to recognize John Buchanan and Serena Wilshire, who helped me between November and the 4th week of January, kind of negotiate all of that work to get that done.
Thank you for answering that question and predicting, pretty good prediction. I think they will fill it up again. I have a second question about Kinderhouse.
Sure.
It has to do with the utility sharing.
Yep.
Are we actually metering their utilities, or is that a guesstimate?
So we didn't want to go down what I would call a more administrative, complicated scenario. There's a couple of splits here where the church benefits for 1 or 2 utilities and Kinderhouse benefits for 1 or 2 utilities. And so we elected not to meter each one of them and allocate out and just say, okay, there's 3 or 4 that we use jointly. Let's just split it 50-50. And then the scenario here, Alan, is there's a couple of areas where almost all of the use was probably Kinderhouse. And so again, we didn't when we did their basement renovations, we didn't try to separately meter the whole building for different reasons. And so just kind of where we landed, I can share with you the process for this will be pretty straightforward, which is we'll be sending the utility bills, copies of the utility bills monthly to them. And they'll obviously have a 50% reimbursement responsibility to those.
Thank you. One more quick question. I promise this is my last one. I remember when I used to visit the church frequently during the week to tend the garden, that they had a habit of leaving their air conditioners on overnight and even over the weekend. Are they still having these individual window units? And if so, can we be sure that they're going to turn them off when they're not using them?
I think Serena has this one.
Yeah, we have fantastically replaced that problem with the mini split units that we installed as part of our capital campaign. Their heating and their air conditioning is all provided by the mini splits, which we have programmed their thermostats so that they will go off when they're gone. And actually, I was over there this morning looking at some other things, and they were all off, and it was nice and toasty warm in there. So I think it's working pretty well. So I'm hopeful that we're going to save a lot of money this way.
Super.
Thank you.
So, thanks. And Serena and Catherine, again, have just done an amazing job on buildings and grounds. We've got so many items we're juggling this year. So I'm grateful for that continued effort. The one other item I'll just flag for you, and it was discussed in the budget, which is the snow removal. The trustees will have some discussions as we put together the final agreement with Kinderhouse. And it's probably, I'm not sure how we'll resolve it this year, but I suspect that we'll try to get to a place where we have a different call, if you would, in the next winter. And so that's something that Serena and Catherine asked us to take a peek at. And so we'll continue to spend some time with Kinderhouse on that.
Hey, one closing question for the minutes. Can you just restate, Don? You said it'll be a 1-year lease with the option to renew, or I just want to make sure I capture that correctly.
Margaret, it's a 1-year facility use agreement. It's not legally a lease. It's a facility use agreement, and the term runs February 1st of 2022 through January 31st of 2023.
Yeah.
There is a 2-year renewal option available to Kinderhouse and to the church, should we want to go down that path.
Got it. Thank you.
Holly, that's all I have.
Beautiful. Thank you again, Don, and thank you to the Board of trustees, as well as Catherine and Serena in buildings and grounds for all that you do for our church. I very much appreciate it. All right, we are at the 1 hour mark. We are doing good on time. I would recommend to anyone who just wants to move your body in a way that feels good to you for a moment to do so now. Good stuff. Okay, great. A little stretch goes a long way. Next, we will have a racial justice audit update with Lisa Jenkins. Lisa?
Thanks, Holly. And I'm going to begin by continuing with this gratitude theme and start out with a few thank yous. First, I'd like to thank Pastor Ellen for her commitment to promoting racial justice and also for bringing up the idea of doing a racial audit. I'd also like to thank her for being part of the racial audit team and would like to extend great appreciation and thank yous to people who've been serving on the team. Bruce Grimes, Holly Hancock, Layla Heimlich, and Dit Talley. And also want to thank Sarah Ramsland, who's not a member of our church, but who has been our mentor for the project and who is our liaison with the Central Atlantic Conference. So thanks to them. And I also want to thank all of you, because I know many of you on this call have been participating in one way or another. And thank you for your commitment to the project and for seeing it go forward. So what I want to do is just give a very quick recap of what's been happening so far and then what you can expect in the next few months. So the audit officially began at the end of August. And at that time, we took an audit document that was prepared by people from the Central Atlantic Conference, which was a very long document. And we divided it up and assigned different sections of it to different committees and leadership groups within the church. The people in those groups have been meeting over the last few months, and that part of the racial justice audit is now completed. And even though what I just said took a few seconds to say, I will tell you that there were hours and hours of time committed to that. So thank you again for all that time and energy that went into that. Also in the fall in October, we took the larger audit document and cut it down significantly and prepared a individual audit to send to members of the congregation. So that went out in October. And even though I'm sure some of you found it fairly long, I can assure you that it was significantly shorter than the original document. And we do appreciate that it took, a fair amount of time for you to fill it out. But we're very grateful that 45 people did fill it out and send it back to us. So thank you for that. So even though I said that in just a few seconds, that was a lot of work and energy. And so there's more to come. What's happening right now is that some of the regularly meeting smaller groups within the church were not part of this initial phase of the audit. And so they are now being given the opportunity to participate with a small list of questions. And so those groups will be making the decision about whether they're going to participate and having meetings to discuss those questions. Once those groups that choose to do so have finished meeting and discussing, we are going to prepare a report. We've been asking groups to take notes of what has been discussed and some of the answers to the questions. We are going to take those answers. We're going to take the aggregate results from the individual survey because we're trying to ensure that that remains anonymous. And we're going to prepare a report. And we will be holding a meeting in April where we will be going over what we have learned and what the results of some of the surveys and questions are. Also around that time, we're going to start having some conversations with people in the church to really discuss what the process has been like for them, what we have learned, and really processing some of the information and feelings that have arisen through this whole process. Sarah Ramsland is going to be hosting some of these discussions. And we're also thinking about other ways we might engage the congregation with this work. They might include book discussion groups, small group discussions. I don't know, we're still formulating plans for that. So we'll be sharing more information with that as we go forward. So stay tuned, there's more to come on that front. So at that point, you may be saying, well, we've done all of this, and so now what? And so then I think some real work begins for us in the church, and that is to start thinking about what we have learned, what we have discovered through this process, through the conversations and so forth. What does it mean for the life and work of this church? And so we're going to be asking committees to start thinking about this. And actually, I think the process has already begun. I mean, Serena was talking about some of the contractor information in terms of understanding the groups we're contracting with. And so I think we'll continue with that. And I think the real work is going to really happen. It's been happening all along, but some of the more tangible results of all of this work is going to start happening as we start planning our strategic plan this fall, which I think is scheduled right now to kick off in October. So I think, we need time to process this. It's been a lot of hard work. It's been challenging work at times. I think the team has been participating in a lot of the meetings with the different groups. So I can tell you that there have been very thoughtful, meaningful questions and discussions around this. And I think it's been, from our perspective, really very important for our church. And I think it will, we don't know exactly what impact this will have over time, but I think it will be significant in changing us and in changing the church. So again, that's where we've been, where things are right now, where things are headed. And I very much want to express appreciation for your continued engagement with this and continuing along this journey. And it is a journey. It's going to be a process of learning, unfolding over time. And that's really all I had to say today, except stay tuned, more to come. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to address them.
Thank you so much for your leadership, Lisa.
Any questions? Great. Thank you again to Lisa. Thank you to Ellen, to Sarah for our racial justice audit team, particularly for those of us who are of European descent. The work of anti-racism will never be over. And I am so grateful to be part of a church and a faith community that recognizes that and values it and is choosing to put in the work, because it can be easy to say that we value anti-racism work and then not do much. And I'm really grateful that our church continues to center this. This is, to me, like the work of God in the world. So thank you to each of you for participating in that in your own way. Next, we will move to the Pastor Parish / Sabbatical Committee update with Chris Davis. Chris.
Thank you, Holly, and good afternoon, everyone. I am here to fill you in about and answer any questions you may have about Pastor Ellen's very much deserved and postponed sabbatical. The sabbatical dates will be from May 29th to September 25th. A sabbatical every 5 years is part of our call agreement, original call agreement with Pastor Ellen. And she took her first at the 5-year mark and was due last year for her second sabbatical. Because of all the uncertainties around COVID, she elected to postpone that and is now overdue for that very important time of rest and refreshment. And so I want to express my gratitude to the sabbatical search team. That's me and Bruce and Holly and Elizabeth, who are at work searching for a candidate to be our sabbatical support pastor, and also to the Pastor Parish Relations Committee for the coming year. That's Ellen Campbell and Sybil and Elizabeth and Don Blanchon. And we have all been at work planning to move this sabbatical forward. It's a time for Pastor Ellen not only to rest and recharge, but for her and for us to take a pause, to reflect, to assess where we are in our joint ministry, our ministry with one another, our ministry to our neighbors around us. And it's a really good time for us to be doing that. We are transitioning back and forth from online to hybrid worship. We have some staff changes coming up. We have just finished the racial justice audit, or I'm sorry, we have finished phase one, a phase, sorry, Lisa, of the racial justice audit. And in the fall, we will be beginning the strategic planning to going forward. So it's just a really, this is going to be a time when we can all just pause and reflect and have that regrouping time. So the pragmatics, who will lead us and lead our worship. We are searching for a candidate, sabbatical support pastor. We have a couple of good candidates. We're conducting interviews, and we hope to have more news on that front. That person, when they are chosen, will lead 12 Sundays of the 18 during the sabbatical, and the worship committee will organize the remaining services, however they wish, but often at the last time combination of guest preachers and lay-led, and perhaps there's something from the conference. Lots of options there. And then that sabbatical support pastor will also participate in some adult education coffee hour type discussions. And otherwise, we will be lay and staff led, and for some of the lay leadership, that's a little bit of extra, especially the worship committee, congregational care. And so my gratitude to all of you who will be participating and helping with lay leadership during that time. I want to pass along the reassurance from Pastor Ellen that it is her intention to stay in ministry with us for the foreseeable future. And let's see, what else do I want to say? I guess I will just ask what questions you may have about that time. Well, I am just really, I want to express my gratitude to Pastor Ellen as well for just all that she has carried over these, over her 11 years, almost 11 years with us, but especially during these past 2 years of the pandemic. And it is, I'm happy that you'll be taking this time, and excited. Yes, thank you, Margaret. If there are no questions, just I will be filling you in further, and thank you to everyone who's put in time to work on this sabbatical.
Great. Thank you, Chris, for your work. Thank you to everyone on the pastor parish committee. Thank you, Ellen, for your work. And I will also say I am so excited for Ellen to take rest and have a sabbatical. And I'm also really excited for our congregation to have this time, in the UCC, where we have polity and where the congregation is the head of the church. I think this sabbatical is going to be a wonderful time for our congregation to reflect on who we are, particularly as we're using this new leadership model, right? As we're going through a racial justice audit. So I'm both so happy for Ellen and also excited for us to have this time as well. So thank you again, Chris. Speaking of Pastor Ellen, we will now have the pastor's report.
Thanks so much, Holly and Chris. I'll just piggyback very briefly on what Chris was saying so that you all have some idea of what I'm thinking for the sabbatical. Chris mentioned that, this is an important time for both the pastor and the congregation. And that's really how I'm viewing it. I will have been pastor of this congregation, of our congregation, for almost 11 years. Well, actually more than 11 years since my call, almost 11 years since my first day on the job, when I begin my sabbatical. And, I've talked with a lot of people about how, if a pastor is going to stay at a congregation more than 10 years, and I am, it's really important for the congregation and the pastor to sort of re-envision our relationship with one another and re-envision, who we are and how we are moving forward. And so I think as much as, last year I was sad to have postponed my sabbatical, it turns out I believe it's coming at a really good point in time, having, we will have finished the bulk of the racial justice audit when I go on sabbatical. When I return, we'll be working on our new strategic plan. We have some staff changes that are happening. And I just think that it's all coming together at a good moment for us to really think about what do we want our working relationship to look like? What do we want? I've preached a lot recently about really discerning who and how we're called to be, what is ours. I think that with the racial justice audit and some of the work that the Capital Campaign Project Group, which we haven't really mentioned today, but has continued to meet, led by Emily Parker, some of the work that they're doing, I think we're sort of narrowing in on, honing in on, discerning more and more sort of what our piece is. And I think that, as I said in my sermon, I feel excited about this upcoming strategic plan because I think that that is going to be a really good opportunity to express that. My sabbatical theme, I'm calling Next Steps for that reason. Next steps in our life together. And one of the things that I've said, I think in a few places, is that I would like to pull back a little bit more from the executive director type part of my job, and step more fully into the parts of my job that the more traditional pastoral pieces of my job, pastoral counseling and spiritual leadership and social action leadership. And I think that's important, honestly, because we all know I have a tendency to overfunction. Our congregation has a tendency to overfunction. So we fit well together, but I have a tendency to overfunction. And I think it's unfair of me to set up expectations for whoever ultimately does come after me, that this is what a solo pastor should be doing. And so I want to be more honest about what is truly sustainable and realistic for myself. And I want to continue to invite all of us to be more honest with one another as a body about what is sustainable and realistic for us as a church, utilizing those questions that I came back from my first sabbatical with, the 3 questions: is it joyful? Is it sustainable? Is it effective? And I think those are just really awesome questions to keep in mind. And I also think Desmond Tutu would like them. So having said that, I want to go to some very sincere thank yous. I know there have been a lot of thank yous today, but honestly, there are so many people doing so many amazing things in this congregation. I want to start with Dorothy Mora, who has just been such an amazing music director for us for so many years. And, with the burden of, her mom's decline over the past couple of years. And that's just been really hard. And then also, music, which is such a connected, visceral, in-person experience, and not being able to have the choir meet. I'm so grateful for all that Dorothy did to, coordinate our musicians in this online world and get recordings from them and provide us with the beautiful flute recordings herself every week. And so we said a goodbye and thank you with flowers and chocolate to Dorothy at a service in December, one of our few in-person hybrid events. And I am still hoping that in 2022, when we're all in person, we can have more of a celebration of her time with and service to us. So thank you, Dorothy. I also am just So I want to actually put up, because we voted on our officers, but our church officers are only part of our church leadership. So if you'll indulge me, I'm going to share what our lay leadership list actually looks like. So this is what we all voted on today. Can everybody see? Yeah? Okay, so this is what we voted on today. These are our church officers. That's the council. And then, of course, the Board of Trustees, we talked about. This is now, I see, I already changed it. Edmund, you're right in there. And then these are our council ministries. And of course, this reflects what we voted on in terms of the change in our organizational structure. But if you just look at all of these names, and of course, there are people who are on more than one of these, more than one of these committees or teams. I mean, here's Mary Jane Glass, who is on fellowship and also a trustee. We've got Bruce, who's on mission and social action, and also our incoming moderator. But I'm really delighted to say that almost all of our committees have at least 4 people, which I think for a church our size is kind of the minimum that we should have. We do have a couple of committees, adult programs, and communications and technology, that could use 1 or 2 more people. So we're going to be seeking those out. But in general, we just have a really robust number of volunteers who are helping out in all areas of the church. And then, of course, we just have, really great staff. Latia has stepped up to be our cantor and choral leader in this interim music period, meaning that she will both lead hymns in the sanctuary until we can actually have our choir safely leading hymns. And she, as choral leader, is going to coordinate some of the solos, ensembles, duets type of thing, working with Sarah Spey, our new music committee chair. Meg, who has already been mentioned, we call her Meg the Magnificent. I truly could not do my job without Meg, and I'm so grateful to her. Dan Stokes is continuing as a once a month accompanist. Sadly, Harold, I don't have a whole lot of information about Harold. He has sort of faded away. But at the moment, he is not participating as our accompanist. I have a lot of gratitude to him for the incredible musical contributions he's given to us over the years. And I hope to be able to give you more information about that. And then, of course, Grandin Purnell has been, he was our teen group leader last year, for the last couple of years, and he's been assisting me with our really wonderful confirmation coming of age group. And then, of course, just so many other people that aren't even on this list, like the 6 people who are going to mentor our confirmation coming of age kids. And finally, I get to our amazing moderator of the year, Holly Hancock. It was such a pleasure to work with you this year. It was a lot more than I think either of us anticipated. And Holly was just involved in so many things, from the racial justice audit to all of the council stuff, to the change in the leadership structure, to, I'm not even going to remember it all, Holly, because, it's been a year. So I wish we could always do these things in person, but Holly did receive, the council always kind of gathers up a little collection and, gives a gift to the moderator. So Holly did get a gift card from the council. And then I don't know if she's received them yet, but you should be getting a flower delivery today, Holly. So anyway, just huge gratitude for everything that you've done, and so happy that you are going to continue to, that you're going to continue. And of course, looking forward to working with Bruce this year, which is going to be wonderful. So if I have anybody who I haven't named, I know your name was on the screen, and I just, you make it such a pleasure to be part of this congregation. Thank you. And I look forward to years ahead.
Thank you, Pastor Ellen. Alan, do you have a question?
I just wanted to add on to what Ellen was saying about your service, Holly. And I did have a question for Ellen. It wasn't just how much you did, which was unbelievable, but the way that you did it. For me, that counts for more. And it's just so professional. Bruce, you've got a hard act to follow. You better start working on your limericks. And for Ellen, if you can't answer this question, just say no comment. That's fine. Are you going to have a chance to, it's 4 months, right? Are you going to have a chance to leave, to get out of Denver during this time?
Get out of Denver? Do you mean
Don't know that
DC?
song? Yeah, well, I mean, not just DC. I mean your house.
Yes.
In the
Yes.
city. Are you going to go to the country?
I'm going somewhere, Alan. I'm getting out of the fraternity, if that's what you're asking me.
To the trees and the mountains and the ocean.
Yes. Yes. I don't have specific plans quite yet because everything keeps changing with COVID. So, but yes, thank you for asking.
Thank you, Alan. And thank you again, Pastor Ellen. Next, we will move on to other church business. Alan, as I stated earlier, my promise to you is that we will figure out the minutes question. So if you want to send me an email about that and maybe include Meg, Ellen, and Bruce, we will figure that out. Is there any other church business for the good of the order?
Yes. In addition to the question about the 2020 minutes and doing what we agreed to, I'm happy to report that I boiled the other 4 questions down to just 3 questions. So I could either send those 3 to you, or I could just ask them right now. They're not that difficult, especially the first of the 3.
We are hoping to get out of Denver by 1:40 p.m. Do you think that these are important to ask during the annual meeting, or are they more administrative or easy to fix offline?
I think the first of the 3 is the easiest one. And maybe we could do that now and then leave the other 2 for later.
Great.
Okay. I'm going to put it in the chat box. And then I'll read it out loud. Okay, the question is, at the, I think it was the 2020 annual meeting, Don reported on the congregational survey results. And I think he said that most members favored the 51-foot Lowell Street option. But could he please confirm whether the most was a majority of the members responding? Was it, there were 50 members that responded, so were there 26 people or more that voted in favor of Lowell Street?
Alan, I see that Don is on. Oh, never mind, you're here.
I'm here. I was just, my dog was losing it, so I didn't want you to have to hear that. Sorry. And not losing it at the question, Alan, just losing it because someone came to the door. So Alan, I'll go back and actually get the stats, and I can send them to Holly or Bruce and just say, this is how many people came in, and this was the numbers of how they split. I've got it somewhere in the folder here in my house. What I recall is that it was not close. It was 60, 30, 10 in that range of who responded. So it was about 60% preferred the longer ramp option. There was that block option that we had, which was a different one, and there was a subset that, and then there was a different version. So I'll go back and actually pull the stats and just have them sent back, and we can send them back out that way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other church business?
Yes, I have a couple things. Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you, Ellen, for your kind words, and thank you for everyone's messages of support during the last few months. It's very much appreciated. I wanted to note, as far as the music committee report, that I think it's very important every year that we include the fact that Dan Stokes' piano is in the sanctuary, and that has allowed us to attract a lot of musical groups. The piano doesn't belong to the church, it belongs to Dan. And I think because of his generous allowing us to use it, that's one reason why we have high figures in facilities use for the music program. So I think it's important to include that in the annual report, just noting that that piano does belong to Dan Stokes and he allows the church to use it. And then I just had a couple other changes to the music committee report, but I can send those separately, nothing substantive.
Dorothy, should we put that note in the minutes?
Yes, I think it should be included every year in the annual report because
Perfect.
It is an extremely generous loan on the part of Dan, and it has increased our church's visibility and the ability for more groups to use the church.
Great. And
I've captured Dorothy Mora confirmed that the piano at the church belongs to Dan Stokes and he allows the church to use it.
it's the piano in the sanctuary.
It's the piano in the sanctuary.
In answering
Okay.
the chat question. Yeah.
And there were some additional names that should be included in the chime choir, but I will send those.
Oh, great. Okay. So can you just send those changes to Meg and Sarah Spay and me, and then we'll make sure Meg will just electronically change the annual report?
Yeah, I think it should be in the final version of the annual report.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorothy. Any other business? Okay, before I hand it off to Bruce, I had a longer spiel, but for the sake of time, I will just say ditto to everything that Ellen said, thanking all y'all. And I will also add again, thank you, Margaret, for being our clerk, particularly after you moved to Ohio and continued to do this work for us. So thank you, we really appreciate it. Selfishly, I am happy that we practice yoga together, so I get to continue to see you in another spiritual setting, but you will be missed. I also just want to share throughout this meeting, all of the gratitude that I've felt from all of you and all of the gratitude that I've heard us heap on one another. You may have heard the Meister Eckhart quote, "If the only prayer you ever say in your entire life is thank you, it will be enough." And I want to offer up that we've literally prayed one another through an annual meeting through gratitude. So thank you for as much as, you know, parliamentarian procedure and all of that goes, we also did it, I think, in a spiritual way, in a way that just like affirms why I want to be a part of this community. So thank you to each of you. Thank you, Bruce, for being our moderator. Bruce has sometimes joked to me throughout the year that he's been the Kamala to my Joe. And Bruce, I promise to be the Obama to your Joe, not the 45 he will not be named to your Joe as you become moderator. So Bruce, I will now pass the mic to you.
Okay, well, we will, if you will virtually symbolically pass the torch to me. There we go. Okay. So the torch has been passed. As someone mentioned, Holly is going to be a very tough act to follow. And I've been aware of that for a long time, but we're going down a new path now. And I certainly want to thank the leadership team, the lay leadership team that will be working with me, Holly Moon, John C., Don Marshall, and certainly we'll be working closely with Ellen. Some big things coming up this year, as long as the racial audit will be continuing, but this sabbatical, of course, will be the big event, for, if you will, for both the church and for Pastor Ellen, and will be a real challenge as lay leadership adjusts to both that environment and to the environment going forward as Pastor Ellen has said, the lay leadership will be taking on more responsibility for organizational affairs at the church. And the strategic plan will be coming up. So there's a lot to look forward to, and I look forward to working with everybody on it. So I guess my first order of business will be to ask for a motion to adjourn this annual meeting. And if I could see that with a show of hands.
Bruce?
Yes.
I probably just missed this, but did we actually vote on the slate of officers? Did we actually take a vote?
Yes, we
At the
did.
very beginning, towards the very beginning, yeah.
Oh, okay, thanks. That way, in that case, I have nothing further to add.
You don't want, do you wish to object or abstain?
I just want to make sure everybody approves of me.
All right. If I'd like a motion to adjourn, if I could hear an amen to that effect.
Amen.
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 Okay. Then our prayerful annual meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.
Hallelujah. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. Thank you.
All right,
Ellen.
thank you. Thank you,
Thanks.
Holly. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Ellen.
Bye. Just looking at the chat to make sure there was nothing I didn't get already. I think we're good. All right. Bye, everyone.
Goodbye, everybody.
I did download it, Ellen, if you want to
Oh,
copy.
thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. All right. Bye.